What's up, guys? Welcome back. We were gone for a minute, a little off the radar, but I'm excited to be back. Excited to be talking today with Kimisha Moxley, creative director, designer of the clothing brand Kim Products. How are we feeling?
All good, all good. I'm excited to talk to you guys. Excited to be actually doing something. Quarantine has been long, but it's nice to be able to do stuff like this.
Exactly. All right. So let's just get right into it. Aside from, specifically the clothing brand, how did your interest in clothing and designing in general begin?
I would say I was raised in a pretty artistic house, and my parents never made it seem like I couldn't involve myself with the arts. So I feel like I just naturally kind of like gravitated towards it because it was accepted at home. And then that just made me kind of just like perfect my craft at an early age and be a perfectionist with just expressing myself, honestly. So the older I got, I was realizing like, okay, the stuff that I'm doing for fun and the stuff that I'm doing just to like, kill some time can like damn near be profitable. So I like really started like toning in on like the inner hustle that I had and all the different type of skills that I had saw my parents put into place with their, working class type of lifestyle. And I just like, kind of made it happen. I didn't even realize what I was doing at first, honestly, but I think creating is something very natural for me, and I have an inner, business mind. So it kind of just like merged into something really organic.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about, that hustle, that business mindset that kind of started at a young age for you. You created clothes since you were 15, started off 15, maybe even earlier. So how did that develop into your then creation of the brand that you have now, Kim Products?
So when I was 15, I was like a fucking fat ass athlete head, and I just like really thought that the only way I was gonna make it out of Chicago was to be a fucking hoop star. Because I feel like in Chicago, that's like really the most basic route that everybody goes. Like, oh, you gotta like make it to college somehow with a scholarship, and I don't know. I feel like when I was 15, I was like really trying a lot of different shit. And when I had tried to like paint on clothes and just like tried that out after all the things I had been doing, I was like, oh, like I think I'm getting the most attention off of this, like the most great feedback. And I was a good hooper and all, but like I wasn't, like the fucking star hooper of the team. But like when I was painting these jackets and shit, I was getting a lot of like credibility for it and just a lot of like appreciation for the details, and people were really rocking with it. So I think being a young age and getting like that type of like affirmations of like, oh, like you're an artist, like, we see that shit. Yeah, it just made me really like tone into like what it could be in the future and what I could make of the stuff that people were like appreciating me for, honestly. So then I like really started Kim Products, and it honestly started off on some like Kim originals. And the only reason I really made it products was because I had no clue what type of direction I wanted to go with it. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to keep hand making stuff. I didn't know if I could like step into shoes or something. Like, my mind was just like obviously on the bigger picture, but not really crystal clear on the image yet.
Mm-hmm.
So as I got older, I think I just like kept winging it, honestly, but I was persistent in making sure that like this was something that I could, make money off of and something that I could, use as a future. Right. So it really made me start taking just art, and it started making me take myself serious. And Kim Products really is like my baby, honestly. Like it really is me in a certain lens, but I think it really has to do with more of the Chicago kid experience than it does with my personal experience. Mm-hmm. I still try to make the brand, very universal for a Chicago kid, and still very, very urban. So I've been developing that type of like, aesthetic for a while still keeping kind of like the natural, like primary colors and like eyeball and like, kind of like certain aesthetic that like people fucked with me from the beginning just because they know that all of that stuff is like, me essentially. Right. So the brand has a lot to do with not only just like my come up and just like, me growing as a woman, but it also just has to do with me, being a Chicago ass kid and showing the world in some type of lens that, like, you know, Chicago is a gold mine for creativity. And I never want my brand to be for honestly anything else other than to show that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, both of those experiences in one. So I fuck with Kim Products, but it's definitely like Kim Products is not Kim. You know, I say that all the time. Like, Kim Products is not Kimisha. Like, it's this whole own entity that I think is like going to be tied to Chicago like for years to come.
That's super dope, which we'll get into more, you know, Chicago and your upbringing a little later on, but onto, you know, more of the specifics of creating a business and things of that nature. How did you, first let's start off with the logo. How did that come into creation?
Yeah, so my parents were like super strict growing up, so I never was able to like go outside for real. So when I got into high school and I like finally had a little lick of freedom, I started like fake getting into graffiti. And while getting into graffiti, I couldn't really have the time to like really be in that shit because my parents were so on my ass. But I also was able to like, you know, be at school and like hang out with all my like tagging friends and like tag shit around the school. So one of my homies was like, oh, like we're making tags to like put up around the school, like you should make some. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that's easy. Like I'll fuck around, just do some little shit. And I started like creating my logo essentially. And I was just like, okay, like I really wanted to have like this, you know, double meaning. I really wanted to have like some symbolism. The first thing I learned how to draw when I was a kid was eyeballs. So like I've always been kind of just like infatuated with, you know, eyes in general. So I put the eye in there because I have two eyes in my name. And I put the devil's tail on the M and the halo, you know, just essentially trying to symbolize like, you know, Kim, like, you know, a badass but an angel at the same time. And I really do embody that on some personality shit. So like I think my tag really, you know, was special to me. And that's what made me really pick it and was like, yeah, like I'm gonna start putting this on like all the stuff I create. Like this is gonna be my logo because I feel like it just really represented me.
That's super dope. And on to kind of with that symbolism, I know a lot of your products have butterflies on them, which could be a symbol of, you know, endurance, just hope in life in general. But what does the butterfly represent and symbolize for you personally?
Definitely. So my full name is, and I'm finna put my government out here and shit, but my full name is Kimisha Moxley, and my middle name is Apani, which is a word of dialect of an ancient moth of the Cherokee tribe where my mother is from.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandparents actually are like half Cherokee, so they're indigenous and they're also African American. So I just, growing up, I also was, you know, I always was called, you know, butterfly amongst my mom's side and just anybody that knew me personally because they knew that my middle name was Apani.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, growing up, I just was really, you know, just used as like, oh, like the butterfly and like, oh, like, you know, you can be a caterpillar now, but like we can't wait until you blossom type thing. Like a lot of people had hope in to me just because of this name. And I was like, damn, like, you know, the older you get, you know, Kimisha and my last name doesn't mean that much, but like having a strong middle name really stuck with me. And just butterflies in general stuck with me as I got older. And I was like, you know, this is something very personal to me that I identify with before it had even fucking got trendy, you know, to the point where everybody's putting butterflies on fucking everything. Like, you know, I was obsessed with this, you know, insect before I feel like the whole wave got to it. So I had like showcases and all different types of events, like really telling people like, hey, like I'm the Chicago butterfly essentially. Like I want people to stick along for my journey and to understand, you know, the cocoon stage to me becoming an adult and just like, you know, really identifying with the insect like super, super early. So not only is it like tatted on my hand and stuff, but like that shit is in my legal name. And even when it comes to like just my heritage, like my grandmother gave me a Pawnee for a reason. You know, she really did believe that I was the butterfly of the family. So even me being like first generation college and shit, like I do resonate with the butterflies so much just on the, you know, like the endurance and the rebirth aspect of it and just the, you know, the persistence that's needed with such a graceful, you know, insect.
Yeah, I
relate to it a lot.
Yeah, I love that. And just like talking about that cocoon stage and, you know, the process, talk to me about what's the process with your creative inspiration behind collections and pieces.
Yeah, so I think each collection is kind of different just because as a adolescent doing all this, you know, creative stuff, I think I haven't had the best organization with each collection. But I think when it comes to concepts, I do super well, just because I use concepts as kind of like a visual representation of, like, you know, a capsule of my life at that point. Like, I honestly think that my life could be a fucking Blueford series. Like, I think my life could be a Lifetime series. Like, that's just, you know, the type of life I've had to live. So I think my art really shows like the details and like the stories that I have just as a human. And I think that like each time I like try to drop something collectively, it does say something about where I am, you know, just like mentally, emotionally, and physically. You know, I had moved out to New York for school when I went to college and shit. And I think that I've made, you know, some of my best pieces out there.
Yeah.
And although I was in New York making shit and like, you know, really advancing my craft, I'd never ever like tried to put anything else like on shit other than like, oh, like Chicago ass, you know, trademarks, and Chicago creates legends, and like still, you know, repping my city while being in another city, but still, you know, making it like crisp and making it, you know, perfected the way that I felt like I was doing with my life, you know, like staying tuned with my roots, but like getting better.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of creatives in Chicago are told that we're not supposed to leave Chicago. I think a lot of creatives in Chicago don't even realize the benefits of like, you know, momentarily, you know, dipping out of the city. So like, even in a collection like that, you know, my personal life has a lot to do with, you know, just the brand and just art in general. So it really depends on me, honestly. But I think that's another just like add on to like how, you know, you're getting authentic gear. Because it's like anybody that buys clothes from me, I obviously would want to stand in front of their face and be able to, you know, uphold the same type of appreciation and just like, you know, image that they would have as wearing my clothes.
Right.
So I'm real heavy on like the interpersonal stuff, and I'm really heavy on like the authenticity of my brand. So I just try to like keep it pushing like that.
And speaking about authenticity, I want to touch on your lookbooks and the shoots that you have. You know, I feel like that's just a whole nother creative layer with planning, designing, and then the element of humans being the models. So for me, it's like I feel anyone could drop, you know, without having the models and the lookbooks and just post up their merch. So what does the human element and those visuals, what does that bring in that you say complete?
Definitely. Those I did a lot of lookbooks. Obviously, like I think I did them a lot more earlier in my life. I haven't done a lookbook in a minute, just because of the fact that like I think I was on that type of curve a little early. So like even in terms of like documentation and shit, like I'm not as concept orientated with it, because I rather the, you know, the packaging and, you know, kind of like the more customer basis shit to be improved on. But I will say that like the lookbooks itself derived from like the one-on-one shit. And when I was making stuff that I knew that like, oh, when I sell this, like it's probably just out there forever.
Yeah.
And that's when I really was like, okay, like you got to start showing the people the pieces that you're making behind closed doors. And like, I was getting commissioned by like all different types of celebrities at 16, you know, to do like really cool shit. But like, you know, when you sell it, it's like, you don't, you know, it's not somebody else's responsibility to display your work. So as I was getting older, I just realized, you know, the importance of just like documentation in general, and just like how like your visual experience through somebody's like brand is like even more cooler if you see like where it started from. And I just really always wanted to be able to showcase like, you know, how I started off when I was a shorty, and just like what type of work I was making from the jump, because I knew that I would only want to create better stuff. And I knew that I would only want to just like show growth. Like I'm really big on just like progression and all that shit in general. Like I feel like, especially even like as a visual artist, like I'm very heavy on like visual, you know, like progression. So my lookbooks honestly just show that for me. But obviously, you know, each one is cannot, you know, tied to each concept of the clothes.
Yeah.
I think I always try to like keep humans as the models, because I felt like I never even thought to do otherwise, honestly. Like I'm the type of person that I wanted my friends to be involved with every single step of my art. Like I used to do like big old fashion shows and just like end up having them be parties at the end of the day, just so I could like have everybody in Chicago come out for art.
Yeah.
And I'm just like I'm an extroverted person that like honestly turned introvert, but you know, I'm social and I have a decent amount of associates. I know a lot of people in Chicago. So just in general, I feel like I just tried to like always include everybody and include specifically fucking Black and brown youth, you know, more than anything. Like I told my mom I didn't want any white models when I was like fucking 16.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't personally feel the need to like keep giving white people a showcase to like, you know, showcase Black art. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So even stuff like, you know, having, you know, like my homies in lookbooks and having, you know, kids that wasn't even into fashion be like, okay, bro, like I know you got some shit going on in your life and I know you in the streets or you doing whatever you got to do, but like, hey, come model and like, you know, like come see the importance of like just showcasing, you know, yourself and being proud of yourself type shit. Like I just feel like the whole lookbook and just like photo shoots in general, it wasn't even always about me or the clothes. Like I genuinely liked giving people those experiences. And a lot of people to this day, you know, they still thank me and give me ups for that because I was making like huge networking opportunities just out of like, you know, little lookbook shoots.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's cool.
So on your website, you describe yourself as creator, visionary, entrepreneur, and you know, visionary being defined as having that foresight, you know, plays hand in hand with imagination. So kind of what you talked about, you know, being from Chicago, putting all your friends on in your lookbooks, sociological imagination. It's kind of like who you are as an individual, shaped your, you know, surroundings, family, friends, where you're from. So being that you're also from Chicago, that has a lot of cultural impact with, you know, arts, music, sports. So talk to me about what Chicago means to you and your creative inspiration.
Definitely. So, I mean, I think I was thinking about this yesterday just because of like the older I get, the more I realize how authentic my life has been to just like the city lifestyle. Like I really can call myself like a Chicago ass kid and like just a Chicago made person.
Yeah.
I grew up like on the west side of Chicago and then moved deeper west and then moved out south. So like even as a kid though, like I have been running around this city like my entire life. So just like I think if there was always one thing that I was always able to like be super proud of and anything that I was able to like always rep, it was just the fact that like I came from like Chicago. And when I was young, all of my older cousins and shit used to live in my house and they always used to have like their starter jackets on and their Bulls posters up and like everything Chicago, you know what I'm saying? Like the jerk crew out in front of my house and shit. And I'm just like, damn, like I always resonated with it, like just the authenticity of my city. And I think that the older I got, I realized how like a lot of the art that I liked was like city based too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up as a huge fan of Joe Fresh Goods and just DBM and Fat Tiger and all that shit in general, you know, Save Money, like everything that I was infatuated with was like pretty local. So I just always like wanted to create, you know, like the cool, fun, quirky stuff that I was doing, but like for local people, if it makes sense. So like I was using my imagination and all of these like, you know, cool, like kind of like basic designs that were being more complicated just off of like the city experience, you know, like, oh, making a concept, but then adding like only a Chicago person would know type of remark, you know, to a piece just to make it for us, by us type thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm very much proud of my city. I'm very proud of where I come from. And I think that our city is like a great oyster for just creatives and humans in general. It really like molds you to be a certain caliber type of like, you know, human in general. It also just really molds you to be a real nigga, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I wanted my clothes to embody that, you know, and because I was embodying that authenticity, you know, and because I actually am from the city, you know, unlike some motherfuckers that come here and try to do shit for Chicago like they're not even from here.
Right.
So it's like I realized the advantage I had because I'm like, damn, I got people popping out from the burbs just to hang out with real Chicago kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt like I really, you know, always saw that aspect of the city and tried to bounce off of that creatively in a way that I thought nobody was. And, you know, really mix like you know, cool design concepts with like, you know, cool landmarks and like cool food from our city and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make it, you know, really what I was always, you know, trying to do with it is just make it, you know, me, but like also make it where I came from type thing.
And, you know, as you state, Chicago's trusted brands, and then you also have other lines like Chicago creates legends. So with a lot of my guests, you know, I've had people from the Bay, different parts of LA. So I kind of just talk to them about their hometown slang. So I've found a bit of Chicago slang. So if you want to, I'll list some and then just put in a sentence or tell me, you know, the definition. So the first one that I got is flogging.
Yeah, flogging. I think flogging is like when somebody's like fronting their move. Like when you flogging about something, it's like you're talking more than like it's actually being put into real perspective.
So next one we got merchant.
Merchant. I'll be trying to like explain this to my out of town homies, but I think merchant is just on some like, oh, swear to God, like, you know, bang it. Like it's like for real, you know, almost like.
Right.
I'm trying to think, what do people in New York be saying instead of merchant? Yeah, words to my moms or some shit. Like on some like, yeah, just on some like
just put
another level of like authenticity.
Got it. Okay. Next one, on dirt.
I think on dirt is like when somebody's like not getting their way about something, or like when somebody is like just kind of like doing shit their way and not giving a fuck about anybody else's opinion. Like when I was in high school, there used to be this brand called On Dirt, and I don't even know what happened to it, but like everybody that used to wear it used to just like be proud of like their fuckery.
That's funny. Last is Buford.
Buford, that's like a higher level of somebody calling you a goofy. Like if you a Buford, then that's like the utmost like disrespectful type of thing. Like you really tweaking if you a Buford.
I'm dead. On to the next little segment. I call it facts or caps. Basically true or false. So I'll list some Chicago stereotypes that I found, and you can let me know if it's true, facts, or cap false. First one is people will say they're from Chicago when they're really from surrounding cities.
That is 100% true. That's 100% true. Because, like, I guess their argument, and I'm not going to fudge, I know some friends that I'll be, like, fake letting them say they from Chicago and they not from Chicago just because it's, like, people genuinely do not be knowing other, like, parts of Illinois. Mm-hmm. And, like, I don't fucking even expect them to because Chicago is, like, obviously the world at this point. But anyways, yeah, like, they don't even be having anything else to call it. Like, oh, Homewood or some shit, or like Flossmoor, or like, yeah, I'll be seeing why some people will try to front they move.
That's interesting. But the next one I got is Chicago deep dish pizza is the best.
Is the best? Yeah. I think Chicago got the best food, honestly. Like, I've traveled all over the place, and there's no place as consistent with the food shit as Chicago, honestly. So I'll say that's 100% true.
Okay. Chicago's accent has been very exaggerated.
I think that's cap low-key, because, like, I don't even think we really have an accent for real. I think out of the Midwest, we don't even really, like, sound that, like, recognizable.
Yeah.
I think it's really just the lingo that everybody be trying to, like, stun on. Like, oh, because we have all this cool-ass lingo and all this slang, everybody be saying that we have, like, these fat-ass accents.
Yeah.
But I'm like, honestly, we just sound like Midwesterners. Like, all of us sound the same.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely more of a lingo thing. But last one, Chicago is a completely different city in the winter and summer.
I wouldn't say that's cap. I think that's a certain level of both. I say it's damn near cap because at the end of the day, Chicago is Chicago. And I feel like if weather is going to slow anybody down, that's on bullshit. Technically, weather-wise, I would say, like, they are completely different because Chicago be brick cold in the winter, and, like, it'll really have the nerve to be hot as hell in the summer.
Onto, culture and music, because there's a lot of rappers that come out of Chicago, like Kanye, G Herbo, Chance the Rapper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just list some of their lyrics. name drop Chicago, and you can let me know if you resonate with it at all or like what it means to you being a Chicago native. So the first one I got is from Kanye West, of course. From Homecoming, he says, reach for the stars, so if you fall, you land on a cloud. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about Chi-Town. So does that resonate with you at all, or what does that mean to you?
Well, Ashley, I feel that. I completely agree. Because, like, I think in that sense, like, metaphorically, like, Chicago low-key do be a cloud. Like, I had moved to New York, you know, reached for the stars and, like, went all the way to the top. And, like, when all this corona shit hit, I really had no choice but to just, like, come back and, like, lay low in my own city. So I think Chicago will always be, like, a cloud. Like, even the way that, like, Vic Mensa and Save Money, you know, like, they still pretty much stay in Chicago. Like,
Yeah.
they pretty much still rock here. So I feel like it's everybody's cloud in a certain sense. Like, fucking Vic Mensa, I'm his assistant. So with his ass, I think it's so interesting because, like, you know, he goes to fucking Paris 3 times a month, but, like, he still got a crib in Chicago. And it's just like, damn, like, there's obviously something about this city that's making us all, like, still make sure that we, you know, have a connection here and still make sure that we have a platform here.
Right. And then, so now on to G Herbo. So G Herbo's song, Every Day in Chicago, he says, growing up in Chi, I ain't got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, I have been privileged enough to not have to be fucking stuck in the trenches in Chicago, because as a kid, my ass moved around everywhere. But for somebody that's really, like, in the trenches of this shit, I really could see how, like, you don't have shit to lose at a certain point, because it's like, Chicago, honestly, I think is the most realest city, especially with this street shit. Like, when you are from Chicago and when you are given a certain type of, like, odds presented to you from birth just because of, like, you know, what your family did, what block you stay on, you know, who your cousins is, who your cousin got in a fight with, it really, you know, it really does make niggas ruthless, honestly. And, like, I resonate with Herb a lot because, like, he really does authentically stay with telling the stories of, you know, that type of experience. And it, for every Chicago person, it's just nothing but understandable and, like, you know, cold, because, like, he's a good ass artist, but, like, he also really, really, you know, speaks on that, you know, type of Chicago experience of, like, you know, literally not having shit to lose and just, like, being in a city where, like, there's no mercy for motherfuckers. Like, I used to think because I was a girl, like, oh, no, you know, no hot shit is not gonna happen to me. Like, I'm cool out here, until somebody fucking ups, like, 6 poles on me. And I, like, got caught lacking. And I was just like, damn, like, this city really don't got no love for you. Like, it will make you feel like you don't have shit to lose. Because if you don't get the fuck out of Chicago, you really don't even understand the full, you know, exposure to life in general. Like, in the city, bro, it's only so much you can really do. So a certain amount of high you can get without motherfuckers looking at you and want to just, like, kill you just off of the strength that you getting out of this shit. Like, I obtained ops just by having something to lose type shit and, like, really, you know, creating a future. And it's like, I completely resonate with that. I think Herb is a fucking mastermind, and I fuck with bro really heavy.
Shout out to Amaya. I know
Yeah.
The last one, Chance the Rapper, his song Dear Chicago Summer, he says, Chicago paints a picture that is more than art. How do you feel? What do you get from that?
Oh, hell yeah. No, I completely agree with that too. I think since all of these are, like, Chicago niggas, like, I hear them, bro, like, really. And it's like I was saying, you know, with the Herb quote, like, Chicago, like, everyone here is, you know, dealt a certain amount of cards or odds against them just in general. That's life.
Right.
But on the Chicago experience tip, it's like, being from Chicago, and even if you stay, I just realized, like, damn, like, a couple of blocks could really be a whole different environment for somebody. And, like, how, like, oh, like, there's, you know, white people in my neighborhood now because of, like, 10 years ago when they started gentrifying it. But if you go fucking 10 minutes down the street, it's not like that.
Oh, wow.
So I completely understand what Chance said. And on some crazy shit, I was just with bro yesterday, and I completely think that they understand just the Chicago experience in, like, totality.
it does like really mean more than art. And I think that art is not even the biggest, you know, piece of the Chicago painting, which sucks, but we all just got some different type of time in us. You have to be a certain level of just like Damon, like when you live here. And I think that, you know, Chicago does like paint you to be that.
I mean, that's that mentality. But, you know, being born and raised in Chicago, you're now a rising sophomore, or you're a sophomore at Parsons School of Design in New York City. I want to reference an Instagram post that you made saying that the first time you were in New York, it shaped you tremendously, a new lens as a creator, young adult human being. So talk to me about that development.
Definitely. So like I said, I've been extremely blessed in my life, and I got the opportunity at 17 to basically I created my own internship with Adidas. And it started off with me kind of just like being like, hey, like, you know, I'm from Chicago, and like, I want to show y'all Chicago. You know, this is like a New York Adidas team coming to Chicago, and they got to see me in my element, which is like pretty rare for like a lot of kids. Like, it's not like, oh, like your dream job just like comes walking to you. But because I was a hooper and because I was like doing really fucking good on varsity as a freshman, you know, I got picked to do an Adidas survey just about like, oh, you know, what's going on in Chicago, what are kids interested in. We want to talk to a select few that, you know, people fuck with. Yeah. And even in the midst of like them giving me that survey, they were like, yeah, like, you got Chicago down packed. You need to like keep going. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were like, oh, like, you know, this Chicago shit is cool, but like, we came here for a kid like you because like you need to like keep going. And I'm like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not even trying to entertain they ass. I'm like, well, if y'all want to come do some stuff, like come to Chicago, like all of that. And they were like, nah, G, like as soon as you get some free time, like come to New York. And then I was like, damn, like I used to think New York was just dirty. Like I never really even tried to entertain leaving Chicago like that because I just wanted to be the Chicago princess for so long. Mm-hmm. And then like I took up the opportunity and I hit them up like for spring break. And I was like, hey, like, should I come out there, you know, for spring break? And they were like, no, like, we're going to pay you to come out here for a month. So as soon as you get done with school, like, we're going to fly you out. And I was like, oh, okay, like, that. So, yeah, I set it up and told them, like, hey, like, the only way I'm coming out there is if y'all make it happen. And this is me negotiating with a team of, like, international Adidas fucking representatives about, like, hey, like, I need more money. Like, yeah, y'all want to fly me out. Yeah, you want to put me in this fat ass B&B, but like I need spending money. So They were like, okay, you know, like still fucking with me, bro. And like I was so blessed to be able to have an opportunity like that to just get the fuck out of Chicago for a couple of months, because I went out there 1 month and they did nothing but just ship me back out there. As soon as I like came back to Chicago, they were like, okay, well, yeah, I know it's July 30th, but like August 1st to August 30th, you need to be back in here. Yeah. So I was really just getting like flew out to New York like that whole summer, and I was still in high school. Yeah. And I was, you know, I went back to my senior year and I'm just like, yeah, this Chicago shit kind of dead. Like I had a lot of fucking experiences like just outside. Like I was outside a lot more, into a lot of more bullshit. That's when I had got like that pole fucking put up on me. So I kind of just was like, yeah, like this Chicago shit is cool, but like now I'm like starting to understand the deeper roots of the Chicago shit, and like now I'm kind of like a little turned off by it. So I was like, let me just like take a break and see if I can fuck with New York. Yeah. And then after I had went out there for the Adidas shit, the kids that were like actually getting the real Adidas internships were all in college. So they were like fucking graduating from Parsons, and I was in there in high school. Yeah. So they were like, oh, like you should fuck with Parsons. Like you in this bitch before us. Like you damn near know how to do more shit than us. Like you should go to Parsons. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like I'm gonna look into it. I'm not trying to be in no whitewashed ass school. Like I honestly wasn't even trying to entertain it until I really looked into their business program. And that's what really sold me on Parsons. Like I still to this day don't fuck with the school. I'll tell they ass to their face that I don't fuck with them. But I will say that I do value the curriculum that they have created for business-minded art students. And something like that, I honestly didn't see anywhere else. Like, I was really trying to fuck with Pratt. I was going to stay you know, at SAIC in Chicago, they offered me a full ride with room and board and a monthly stipend. So like in terms of packages, I got some really good ones. I think I just like really valued like, okay, well, for one, I'm not really trying to be in any other city but like Chicago and New York. Like I wasn't trying to be in a university town. I was trying to fuck with Urbana, but I didn't fuck with Urbana like itself, like just the town. So then I was like, okay, like let me like really see what this Parsons shit is about. And I think me toning into not only like the internship in like New York in general, but then also like being very involved with like the college process, it made me just like be sold on New York really fast. Like my mom used to tell everybody like, oh yeah, she's just gonna go to New York. Like I don't know. I was just one of those kids, a lot of art students, gets that's either the LA or the New York shit. And I was just like the New York kid for that year. And it worked out for me. I love New York. And I honestly am very, very grateful of the way that being out of the city and just being in New York in general has shaped me. I think it like totally mellowed me out. It definitely made me a lot less hot-headed. It took a little bit of the Chicago out of me, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
And it helped me heal a lot easier because I was really in New York, like by myself. Like I didn't really hang around Chicago people in New York until like my second semester. And that's when I had moved out of my dorms and like talked to one of my Chicago friends and like, hey, let's do this because fuck this New York shit. Let's like build a mini little Chicago in New York. And that's when I really was able to even just still thrive in it. Cause like, I think New York is just such an oyster. Like it's such a cool city. And the way that I was able to use my Chicago skills in New York made it 10 times better, like by far.
And you talk about building that little sense of Chicago in New York. So how do you pull from both cultures, New York and Chicago, in your designs and just, from in your personality?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think New York has a pretty like lame streetwear culture. I think it's really huff, and I think it is like very clout based.
Yeah.
So like on that type of tip, I wouldn't even give New York the fucking credit. But I do think that going to New York and working for a high fashion brand like Pierre Moss, I worked with them for over 6 months, and seeing that level of just like design on like the simple level, not even on the streetwear level, it just expanded the fuck out of my mind. Cause I was like, okay, well, I'm still street and I still want to make, like urban shit. So I'm going to keep doing what I do, but let me use the tactics and the materials and the business strategies that these higher brands are using to implement that into my streetwear brand, to the point where it didn't even look like or replicate any urban shit that was going on in New York. Like people in New York do a lot of like high priced items, like most of their small businesses are like pretty taxed.
Yeah.
So people were like, oh shit, like you're from Chicago, you selling Chicago ass hoodies for like less than $50. Like, okay, we'll just fuck with you because it's that cheap. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was still making bank, still doing what I had to do and just like, embodying the Chicago vision, but using the New York tactics. And I think that's what still makes my brand authentically Chicago in the midst of me moving around. Cause it's like, I never use any other city as inspiration other than here, like real shit. And it's like, although Chicago is like, raw as hell and like our creative scene is in tune, a lot of shit that's like popping in New York is not being brought here all the time.
Yeah.
So like I honestly, for me, really, I was one of the biggest Chicago brands that brought out rhinestones early. Like I brought that shit out pretty early before it kind of got a little like normal.
Yeah.
And like in New York, now that like everybody's doing it, it's like every fucking brand out there is doing some lame ass rhinestone detailing shit. And I'm just like, bro, I've been doing this for Chicago for months. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I'm bringing the shit that they're doing in a weird way and making it simple and like, universal enough so that Chicago people are like, oh, this is something new. We fuck with it, but It's still Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to touch on, you talk about, Parsons being whitewashed. So Chicago, I'm sure that's, a huge contrast, being such dominant Black culture, and then Parsons with probably like about 5% African-American population. So
literally, yeah.
What is that like being a person of color in such a space?
Yeah, so I'll start off to say fuck PWIs in general. And the only thing that really pushed me to even deal with that shit was the fact that I had semi dealt with it in my fake diverse high school.
Yeah.
And I think going to my high school, I went to Lincoln Park High School. So Lincoln Park is like such an interesting school because it's really a melting pot. Like we had like 20% white, 20% Latino, 20% African American, 20% other. Like that's just how like, you know, divided it was,
Yeah.
but in a good way. And it made me realize like personally, I'm not trying to get this degree to run around in the Black community and wave it around. I'm trying to get this degree to like be in certain type of rooms on the white side. And I just felt like my education, like I don't talk like a white person. I never even was the type of mixed girl to like get called, oh, you talk white. Like, no, I was cussing niggas out. Like it was, you know what I'm saying? Just in general, I never even felt like I wouldn't be anything but authentically Black in any space. And that just made me realize that like above all the bullshit and like honestly, I felt like I wasn't going to school to get friends. I wasn't going to school to like get a college experience. I was going to school because I wanted to like fucking fuck around in New York and like make money out there and like be in the city and like meet new people. Like I wasn't even that concerned with just like the school shit in general. Like I'm one of those people that goes to school just to like pass.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care about no bullshit. Anything that I can take home and like make money with, give me that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I just felt like I was always like blunt about shit. And even like when I was telling my college advisor, like, you know, I want to go to a school where it's nothing but money around that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want all of my students to be just like surrounded by money. Cause like that's what I'm trying to be on. Like I don't come from money. My parents are both working class. My mom used to fucking make $9,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like little shit like that will humble you. And it just made me realize like, okay, the only way I'm going to up my caliber and up my price is if I'm around motherfuckers that have that high ass price naturally.
Yeah.
And it's like, even me being in a PWI, it's not like I even have white friends for real. Like the only white friend I really had from my school was my white roommate. And because me and her are both queer, you know what I'm saying? That's how we connected easy. Like when I got to New York, I really just was like hanging out with anybody that, you know, was LGBTQ and was trying to just like find friends around that because I couldn't even find no fucking Black friends.
Yeah.
So it was just like in general, like I never even like fake kicked it with nobody. I'm not a partier. I don't do none of it. I don't drink. You know what I'm saying? Like just in general, like I'm just a certain type of person that like the white people in my school don't really affect me. I'm just there to get that fucking degree and be around y'all, which, you know, rich ass mamas so I can make something happen with them or some shit. Like my mind was very tunnel vision, especially even on the college experience. And like, although I hate Parsons, I ultimately am just there to like show people that like, hey, like this is a finesse and like more Black people need to be finessed in this education system like this. Because Parsons paid me so much money just to be the little mixed girl from Chicago and that bitch. And it's like, I went there and didn't do anything for the school. I don't talk to the, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't talk for the newspaper. Like, none of that bullshit. Any of that statistic shit that y'all could use against me, I'm good. I never wanted to make it seem like I was fucking with them.
Yeah.
And that is what, you know, really keeps me there because they don't even feel like I'm there for real. Like, I feel like I just go to school in New York. And you know, just like the cultural difference, I feel like I went from living the blackest neighborhood in Chicago damn near to living on 5th Avenue in Manhattan. So that type of just like difference in general, it humbled me and it still made me be authentically me in every space because I realized that New York is just a melting pot of thousands of different types of people. And it's not like I saw hella Chicago people out there repping Chicago, or it's not like I saw hella Black girls actually trying to act Black out there. Or like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just was like, oh, okay, like I can be here and just be me and like, it's cool. You know, people fucking was obsessed with me. My name was in all different types of people's mouths just off the fact that I didn't fuck with nobody. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like just that level of type of access type shit, people fuck with you. And it's like, I learned that very early in New York, and it just made my experience like go by so fast because I just was locked in the whole time. Like I used to use my dorm to like run back and forth between different stores and just like use our bathroom to make shit in the middle of the night while everybody was asleep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's because like I just had gotten myself in that type of situation. You know, like I knew what I was doing when I was moving to New York, but
I feel like that just really displays how you stay true to yourself and your Chicago roots. You know, a lot of people will make it big or just in general will switch up. But I feel like, you know, that just speaks volumes about your character and also speaks volumes about how you are just so like laser focused on your brand and your future. So I do want to highlight that, you know, you got experience even before you got into college. As you said, you know, you were a high schooler and there were already people from Parsons, you know, looking up to you. So how do you gain that confidence? I feel like that just really emphasizes the trust people have in your brand and how you have trust in yourself. So how do you even gain that confidence?
that's a good ass question, and I really appreciate you like going in depth because I have a crazy ass story, and I feel like in general I'm never able to like voice that when it's the right time. Like if people don't ask me the right questions, then nobody will ever fucking know. But I don't know, like personally, I think I got my focus honestly like very intrinsically. Like I think because of the like made out of the mud mentality that I grew up with. Like my parents weren't rich at all, and I constantly was reminded of a kid as a kid that like, hey, like we don't have a lot of money. Like, oh, go to the store with this link card and shit. And I just really saw my parents struggling a lot as a kid. And even, you know, just growing up in general, like that should never stop. To this day, I give my parents money. So it's like when you grow up not having shit, it really just puts you in a certain type of position where it's like, okay, you either not gonna have shit yourself, you're gonna be delayed not having shit, or you just gonna make it happen. And I think like the older I got so serious about making it happen because I just like felt so bad at the position that my parents were in. Like my parents are very, very much like low class, middle class type of people, and just like constantly seeing them like, oh, like we can't go inside for the next 3 hours because we haven't paid the gas bill, and if we go inside then like someone's gonna follow us in there and turn the gas off. Like all types of just like crazy shit that I never wanted my kids or even just like me as an adult to have to experience. And I just like always strived, even as a shorty, to have stability because I felt like my parents weren't doing that effectively enough. And it made me like really grow myself up. It made me really have this like hustle mentality. I was like selling silly bands when I was in 5th grade, coming home with like $300 a week. You know what I'm saying? Just like taxing kids just so I could help my parents, you know, go to Jewel Osco instead of fucking food for less. You know, like just little shit that I felt like I was very serious about, you know, as a shorty, that really developed me into the person that I am now. And it like developed into how I move in general. Like, I think like just in general, like the type of goals that I have for myself, they require a certain level of discipline. Like I don't necessarily just want to be a designer. I don't necessarily just want to like stick to this Chicago story. I want to do hella shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I think Kim products will live on for Chicago for a really long time. But like even like Kimisha, you by herself, like I can create all different types of brands. And like I do create all different types of shit. I just don't publicize a lot of it. Just because I feel like the older I get, the more I like to just like pull out my cards. Like I'm very much of a perfectionist. I am very serious about like rollouts, and I'm very serious about myself, period. You know, like I think if it's anybody's job to brand myself and to market myself and to manage myself, it's me. So I just like really move like that. And even when it comes to my personal life, like if I feel like I have homies that's not fucking making shit happen for themselves, then how the fuck do I expect you to make shit happen, you know, as a team?
Yeah.
And I move like that as a whole because I feel like in general I just always have, and I always have to, on top of the fact that I'm completely independent. Like both my parents are alive, but on my 18th birthday, I told them both like, hey, I love y'all, and I know I haven't talked to you guys about this, but I'm moving out. And just like fucking moved out like 5 o'clock in the morning, 18th birthday, making it happen, just because I felt like it's not like my parents were the worst in the fucking world. They do have their challenges, but I felt like that's how focused I was. Like, I could have waited and gone to like a 4-year and did what they wanted me to do in order to achieve my dreams, but I was just that fucking serious about it, to the point where when I turned 18, I was like, if you're not letting me create and, like, you know, make money the way I want to, then I have to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really what it was. And my parents couldn't even fathom the type of focus that I had, because they never had that focus in their life. You know, they never even had the type of dreams that I had, not because of, you know, me being any better than anybody else. It's just we all are different.
Mm-hmm.
My parents wanted to just, like, you know, have stability, and they just wanted to have a family, and they just want to have cool shit. But I think about longevity, you know, like, I really focused on generational wealth as a shorty. So I feel like in general, like, I just have no choice but to just embody it 100%, or it's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when people meet Hove, when people meet Diddy and shit, you have to live that shit full circle, or it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, I never really felt like there was no real women embodying it the way I wanted to. And, like, also, you know, just like personality wise, I never felt like nobody was like a real G the way that I had, you know, had grew up to be. Yeah. So I feel like all of those things pushed me to be the person I am, and just pushed me to make my art, you know, legendary, and make Chicago legendary, and make, you know, just like this renaissance that's about to happen in Chicago, like, even colder, even on a more visual tip, because I'm such a big fan of visual art that I feel the need to, like, always be in it.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather have to sell paintings to make my kids, you know, college tuition, than to even tell them that they have a college fund. Right. You know what I'm saying? On some shit like that. Like, I move a very, very particular type of way, just because I want very, very crazy, extraordinary good things in my life, and crossing my fingers, everything will work out the way it should.
Definitely. And, you know, we totally see that laser focus. And I love how you think about longevity of things, because I feel like a lot of people in our generation, you know, we're young, but we do have to think about our future in that way, and, you know, move strategically. But I do want to touch on, you know, you mentioned a couple times in this interview about being a perfectionist. To some people that may be detrimental. How has that, you know, either hurt or helped you along the way?
Perfectionist, yeah. I think it's helped me in a lot of ways, because I think that generally I'm very proud of what I put out to the public, which I think a lot of artists can't say all the time. Yeah. I think it also makes it, like, really good on the, like, consumer base, because I think people trust me to have good quality, because they know that I'm not just putting out bullshit, or, like, they know that all my shit is handmade, and it's been handmade since 16. I'm 19 years old, and I still make every single piece by itself. So, you know, just being a perfectionist, I think it's not really that many artists or that many brands that try to uphold, you know, like, consistency. And I'm all about consistency, like, even in my personal life. So as a, like, art perfectionist, I just, like, try to keep that going. I think it hinders me sometimes, because, like I said, I do have a very complex and difficult life, and sometimes life gets in the way of being a perfectionist, you know, on the art tip. And sometimes it makes shit just, like, a lot more complicated on my behalf, because it's like, okay, like, I'm trying to be a perfectionist for art, but I'm also trying to be human. Like, I was fucking trapping out of a car and living with 3 different cousins just because I didn't want people to know what I was going through, and I just wanted to keep being seen as somebody that was just, like, you know, cool as hell and glorified in a certain way. But, like, I feel like it's not really even my time to spill all of the guts of my story.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, like, sometimes I think about, like, damn, like, I wish you were a perfectionist with, like, communicating what you've gone through in life. And I wish you were a perfectionist on, like, you know, seeking, you know, emotional support and shit like that. Like, I feel like sometimes I'll be, like, really hard on myself for, like, you know, the whole, like, art shit. But when it comes to, like, hard on myself to, like, you know, gain more just kind of, like, acceptance, I feel like certain shit like that I'll just, like, really not give a fuck about. And I'm not a perfectionist with certain shit like that. Yeah. Like, I'm very much to myself. It's not necessarily that I feel like shit always has to be my way, but, like, I operate my life off of my standards. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really live for anybody else. So, like, sometimes it can just make shit a lot because life is a lot. And, like, on top of art, you know what I'm saying? Everything shouldn't be planned to the T. So it's really just like I'd be trying to figure out when to be a perfectionist and when to let go.
Okay, so going off of, living up to your own standards, your personal standards, I want to reference another Instagram post you made where you stated that summer that you did do that Adidas internship in New York, you wanted to focus on the Kim that started off before the products, before your brand. So tell me what that means.
Definitely. So I think, like what's so funny is out of all of these interviews, I think you're the first person that like actually said my government on some funny shit. And I think a lot of people don't even know that my name is Kimisha. And a lot of people don't call me that. I don't even let people say that shit, honestly, because I feel like Kimisha is very like authentic, and that's like me as a whole. And I think Kim is like just like a fragment of Kimisha. And that's always what it was supposed to be. Like, I never really was called Kim by anybody else, but like kind of like external friends. Like, my family don't fucking call me Kim. Like, that Kim shit really was just like, oh, okay, like, let me simple this out for y'all and create some cool shit for the world, because I never felt like I always wanted to be like Kimisha. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like for the world type shit. Like, I'm pretty private with my personal life, and I think Kim was always a gateway to be out there but not be too much out there.
Right.
So like when I was younger, when I was like 15, 16, and I was really just understanding who Kimisha was, I was just more focused on presenting Kim. And even like Kim, I think like Kim really embodies like, like the fact that I have a devil's tail in my logo and shit. Like, Kim still embodies the badass, aspect of me and the rebel aspect of Kimisha. But I think it's a lot more tamed, and it's a lot more like innocent almost. Like, I have like a lot of shit, like the Kimisha, like just myself, I have a lot of shit going on. But I think like using Kim and just like toning in on Kim before even creating products, like really taught me like what I want to be for the outside world and how much of that I wanted to keep in. And like the products, I think in general, that kind of like came on the more that I realized how versatile I was as an artist. Like, I never was just like trying to stick to one thing. Like, when I tell people what do, I say all different types of shit, just because in general I don't want to make clothes for the rest of my life. And I don't think that Kim Products is going to be the way that I just like pave through life. Like, I want to be known as a multi-talented artist and also just a good human being in general. Like, I want people to know me for my actions and just like know me for Kim stuff and also Kimisha if they get the chance to. So like, I think that's really what I meant when I was like trying to focus on like the Kim aspect before like all the products, because I think the products are kind of more of like the different dimensions that Kim can step into rather than like Kim herself.
Other accomplishments besides your internships and such, like a pop-up and collaborations, one of them being with Shy Archives this year. So what was that, you being obviously from Chicago?
I feel like I should collab with people more often, but sometimes I think that's just the Chicago in me that just wants to do shit on my own all the time. I mean, like my first 2 collaborations on like the Shy Archives tips and even like the small pop-ups I've had, they have just showed me better ways of just like team working, and I always want to show that.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially when I like pick on who are those like type of people that I'm collabing with, like when it comes to like, oh, like even the process of seeing, a page like Shy Archives and being like, damn, like this like it's very parallel to my message of my brand. Let's like artistically bring that together. And me as a visual artist, I just try to like continue to be authentic to my city. And I think the only way I could do that is to also work with people in my city, like real people that know me on some personal shit, know how much I'm involved with just like community work and the organization Fortune House in general and all the work that I've done with them. And just in general, like even when it comes to like my partnerships behind closed doors, I think it's always essential to work with other people. I think it's always essential to understand different perspectives. Like every time I think I do a project or I do a collab with somebody, I think my clothes get even more better and just like more complex, because I would think about deeper levels of like, well, what about this? Let's switch this out, make this bigger, you know, do this. So the projects is what makes me, I think, become like just a better artist in general. And I think they're just honestly fun.
Yeah, for sure. You talk about, you know, the teamwork aspect. So what do you personally bring to the table when you do collab with other artists? What would you say separates you from others?
Definitely. I think it's always essential to be able to like bring something to the table, like period, like no matter what side of the table you on. And personally for me and my brand, I think when people collab with me, they know that they're getting authenticity off the rip. You know what I'm saying? Like I like to tell, like when I'm in big rooms type shit with bigger people, I always will mention how essential it is to be locally known and locally favored. Like just on the like real tip, like if I were to step outside and like, you know, walk for fucking miles, I would at least see one person I know. And I know for a fact that like out of a 90% chance, it's just going to be a good, you know, clean reaction of nothing but art or just like cool shit. And that's all I personally want to be known for, is just like art and cool shit and just like being a good person, looking out for their community, not being a fucking bum, like not being somebody that just mooches off of the black dollar or just mooches off of the city, but also works for it and, you know, supports it and provides for it. Like, I also feel like, you know, even on like the protest tip, like, of course, like I want to push, you know, even like my type of art into that in general, because I'm very much like confrontational and I'm very much, you know, about physical shit. So like even pushing my work into certain spaces like that, like I think it goes to show what I want to be known for and what I want people to like wear my clothes with and just fuck with me about. Like that's why I try to keep shit like pretty, you know, open and keep shit pretty like direct. Like I put a lot of shit on my website, you know, supporting BLM just because I don't want people on there if they don't, personally. Like I'm cool on the white dollar, like just in general, like I have certain views that I think my art should always align with. And that's what I try to like really focus on.
Definitely. So looking, as we, you know, come to the end of this, looking back from the beginning of your journey to now, what is the single thing that you believe got you to this point where you are currently gaining so much traction and doing so at such a young age?
I think the older that I got, I became a better manager for myself. And the older that I got, I started being way more kind to myself and just overall, I've grown. So in general, I feel like I'm not surprised my business has grown. And like, I think even like when I look back at old stuff, like I don't think I've ever been a bad creator. I think I've always had a very good eye for like, you know, just overall good design concepts. Mm-hmm. But like now that, you know, like I'm physically putting myself out there. Like I just up and fucking moved to New York with 4 bags by myself and moved myself into a dorm. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that I'm taking big risks like this and like being about it physically is the only thing that I feel like is really making like, you know, physically more people fuck with me. It's because like I'm really putting myself in these situations. Like I have some interviews with like, shout out to Hustle Guru, because I think Matt was the first person to like really have this sit down and talk that you're doing with me too. But in his interview, I mentioned how like I always used to like start off with like hosting and being at parties and being at events because I wanted people to see me, you know, eye to eye and face to face and remember me, you know, when you're like wearing my shit, and remember me when you see me hosting an event, remember me when you see me throwing a party. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm big on that. I'm super heavy on that. Like even just like conversation wise, I am always open to talk to people. I enjoy people in general. So like merging that with like becoming a better businesswoman in general is what like really helped my business, and just like growing as an individual period helped me get my numbers up essentially. And I think the only reason that my numbers got up and more people started fucking with me was because I personally started putting way more effort into my brand image you know, like I started getting way more particular about display, presentation, sizing, you know what I'm saying? Like making sure that I really was covering bigger grounds, like moving up to 3X type shit, because that was always something that I was on my ass about, being able to like, you know, just drop better quality products. Like I'm not fucking printing on no gilding shit no more. Like, you know, shit like that. Like the type of, like I was seeing direct movements by myself, like level ups from myself happening that like directly was correlating to like, oh, like now I'm reaching, oh, hella New York customers because, you know, I trusted myself to go move out there. So like now it's just, I have no choice but to view it like that. And I feel like in general, I know a lot of my customers. So it's like the more people I know and the more people I like just meet in general, I feel like I always just have more like support.
For sure. Yeah. Just expanding your brand, I feel like leaving your mark all ties back into that perfectionist mindset. But how at any point did you want to give up or, you know, face any roadblocks?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad they were talking about this because shout out to Vic yesterday. Vic Mensa talked about, for a good ass minute, talked about just like mental health when it comes to Chicago, comes to emotional health when it comes to being Black, and just like all these different types of like challenges that goes through with being, you know, fucking glamorous and being a star. And personally, I 100%, just because I'm not like, you know, in the front of a stage or anything, I still view myself as a fucking star. Like I promise to everybody, motherfuckers will be a billionaire off of art, the same way that fucking Hannah Montana did it, or anybody, you know, any of that shit. Like I don't have to stand on the stage or make musical art to still have like that lifelong impact. Right. And I think that I want to start making, you know, more Black youth and just like more people in general aware of like that, you know, like Black creatives, even in the visual world, can like go hard. And it's like, while trying to keep up that image, while trying to live life and be a human being and like be, you know, at the end of the day, everyone is human. We all go through our own shit. And personally, like, just because of the cards I was dealt from birth, I dealt through all different types of shit. You know, like my white side is like a very much, like they struggle very much with alcoholism just because they're, you know, like first generation Irish Americans, and they just, you know, they identify with that. And while me being a child and dealing with, you know, just like, while me being a kid and like, you know, learning how to draw and going through these good mild stages, while also like having a crazy ass house, you know, like I always lived with like older cousins, or like my mom's friend was staying with us, like always just had a big house. And like also being the only child, like I don't have any full blood siblings. I have some god siblings that, you know, are still my fucking brothers. You know, I have motherfuckers that I like to think are my sisters type thing, but I don't have any like blood siblings. So that type of like disconnect that I had at an early age, like the difficulties that I had with that, I think is the only thing that created the person that I am today. Like the fact that I think I had to deal with a physically, emotionally, and mentally fucking abusive household was the fact that I came out of it fucking 10 times stronger. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather not dwell on the, you know, the crazy shit that I went through as a kid. I just rather, you know, create art based off of it and to continue to tell people how real life can be in general for everybody. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like I've had, like even just on the Chicago experience, like the way that even like Chicago kids have to deal with death so much and so early and so sudden, and understanding the value of not only self, but, you know, life. And just like the value that people need to have with just like decision making and getting through shit. I would be lying if I would say that I'm like, you know, a mixed artist that is having all this success in my brand that hasn't been suicidal. You know, I would literally be lying. And it's like, I also would be lying to say that like the decisions that I've made have been, you know, perfect from this point. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of people fuck with me, but I still have some ops. I still have some people that know some shit about me that, you know, I'm still working on, or like people that I still have to have some talks with, or people that I was never even able to have that talk with. Like all different types of just challenges in life, period, I feel like boil down to like the small shit that leads up to like art and just like growth and progression in general. And I'm starting to learn that like obviously everything that anybody goes through is just like a lesson, period. A L is a lesson. And although people do go through crazy shit, myself included, I just always try to focus on like keeping it pushing. I think life itself is a huge blessing. And I think that the more that I've gotten to like just live life and getting older and really just like spiritually and like mentally connecting with myself more, I'm able to like really get through a lot of the shit that was like causing things to be just like overwhelming on the life tip.
I feel like, you know, hearing that, and as others will hear, it just brings another element to what you embody and what the brand embodies itself. And it's funny that you also mentioned, you know, just keeping it pushing, because I was going to reference your slogan, I believe. It's "Don't tweak." So I feel like that goes hand in hand. It's like, you know, you may be going through whatever it is, but keep it pushing, like don't even trip. There's bigger things ahead. But then moving on your site, you state, I grew up having the brand as a capsule, products created off entire concepts, as a young creative under construction. So I think under construction is, you know, a unique way to put it. So why did you choose under construction?
Yeah, definitely. Like we were just talking about, like, that's the difficulties and the complications with life itself. I think that goes to say that no matter what, I'm always proud of the fact that I'm still learning every day and that I'm still alive and that I'm, you know, every day getting another experience and just like growing and being a better me every day. Like I always think that time in general will allow you to be more wiser everything. Like that's the type of level that I aspire to really be just for life, you know, in general. Like I'm like that now, but like that's the type of people, you know, that's the type of mindset that people come to terms with once they get older and like really start, you know, like thinking about generations and just like impact and influence and, you know, all of the real shit, honestly, like all of the shit that like, you know, real motherfuckers go down in history for. Like shout out to fucking Nipsey, Kobe, all of them. Like they understood like, you know, legends and just like legacy. And I think like the word choice that I use for those quotes and even just the quotes in general, I think they always want to show that like, hey, like this is a very, very special project that is like going on, that is like going to be a crazy story one day. Like that's how I view myself and that's how I view my brand and that's how I just view a lot of shit. It's just like, damn, like this is just a bubbling pot that's just always going to just get better and better and, you know, bolder and, you know, impacting more and just bigger. And just like, even when it comes to like me and my boyfriend, shout out to Lemmy Mo, he a rapper, go fuck with him, _Mo, all that shit. But like, I think about how me and him, you know, just like fucking personality wise, sonically, talented wise, you know, just all of that shit, G, like the combination of me and him, like artist wise, is like going to last way beyond our time. And like, you know, even on like the solo tip, I've always, you know, viewed that as myself, is not only on the personal tip, but as the artist tip. So like, I just try to move with that, and I still try to like keep that same image of like, hey, like, you know what I'm saying, fuck with me. Like, you know, all of this work is just ultimately, you know, the stepping stones of why people fuck with me.
Yeah, that's great. I personally like the usage of under construction, you know, because it just means you're unfinished, but you're actively being worked on. So it just places emphasis on, you know, you're putting in the work consistently, laser focus in that capsule, and it's not the end. So as we wrap up, you know, as the visionary, you are thinking about planning for the future. What is next for Kim Products, and how do you wish to expand the brand?
Definitely. I guess my immediate next goals are to like really tap into Chicago physically and like emotionally again. Like I'm just now, like the summer's over, so like even on like the post, like not post because we still in quarantine, but even on like, you know, the middle stages of quarantine, like just like really nesting and like relearning how to love Chicago again and like get comfortable with the fact that I'm here. I think it's like a huge immediate goal.
Yeah.
And especially like to do that on the marketing and brand tip, and like really just graft Chicago in like a more authentic and like big girl way.
Yeah.
I think long term, I want Kim products to be more focused on the products, and I want Kim products to be more of like a Chicago living legacy rather than Kim's products, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to eventually create like another brand solely for Kimapani, which would just be kind of like another add-on to Kim. You know, not necessarily the products, like the, you know, Kim's environment authentically. And that'll be more like cut and sew type of pieces that are just like, you know, like I make all my shit handmade now, but like that shit's just gonna be like from start to finish, all me.
Yeah.
So it's like, that is something I'm trying to shift to with both of them, and just like in general look out for just like more personal art for me outside of Kim products.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, future wise, I think on the personal tip, definitely trying to get tuned back in with New York and kind of just like reconnect there, you know, like inspiration was, and see like what type of things like this new city, you know, this new New York, because once quarantine is over, like it's going to be a whole different world almost. So it's like I'm excited for that opening, you know, of shit eventually, and I think like it's going to be really good for my art and just like for me in general. So
yeah. Well, lastly, I always let my guests put us on, so that can be, you know, anything that you've been feeling lately, could be anything low key that you don't think many people are on, anything like that. Put us on to.
It's always so fun. Always gonna put motherfuckers on earth to my right hand, the main man that makes it happen, Lemmy Mo. Small heart forever. And I think that he is about to really fucking pop the fuck off in Chicago soon. I think Chicago's been asleep on a lot of people. But like during the times we got going on, it's about to be busting. And I definitely think like his ass is like next up. I think shout out to, you know, all of my homies. I think Hey Sunny is a fucking rock star. Nombre Kari, fucking rock star. Like it's really cool to be able to know your friends that make amazing art.
Yeah.
And shout out to Fortune House. I think that'll be a big empire in Chicago, you know, as we get older. We are literally like 19, 18, 20, trying to fucking make, you know, generational impacts for our city. So it's like, this is really just the beginning. We're really working hard out here. We're in the field, you know, trying to make a better city for ourselves, you know, just give our community more resources, all of that. So shout out to them. Shout out Save Money, Save Life. Shout out Londi. Shout out to Vic, really, really the first, you know, big name to believe in me, and that's my fucking brother. And yeah, shout out Chicago. I definitely am missing people, but like even to all the homies and shit, I love you. I appreciate anybody that's ever bought shit with me, anybody that's even, you know, like the picture, anything, like any support is just always appreciated. I'm trying to just like, you know, do some cool shit, and I appreciate all the support I get on every level. And yeah, I'll plug myself real quick because why not? Google me at Kim Products. You can find me on my website at kim-products.com, and then Kimapani will soon be up. And then yeah, Instagram is Kim Products, Twitter is Kim Products. My personals are Kimapani, and Apani is spelled Aponi. Shout out to everybody, man. Honestly, I feel hella loved right now.
Well,
but yeah,
I'm gonna link all her socials, her website below. You can check out her website. Definitely, you know, cop some pieces. Check out the Instagram. Support Black businesses. Do what you got to do. Tap in, right? If you want to collab, if you're creative, you want to collab with her. All that good stuff. But appreciate you for joining this episode of the Close-In podcast. For everyone else that's listening, you know, show some love, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can follow me. Socials will be below for all updates on the podcast. But that's it for this episode, and I'll see you all on the next one.